The Shelby family isn't just a gang. They are a dynasty built on blood, loyalty, and ambition. Every member, every marriage. Every secret shapes the story that makes Peaky Blinders more than just crime, it's a family saga. To understand the power, the pain, and the legacy of the Shelbys, we need to go back to the beginning, to the roots of this notorious family, and see what made them who they are. The story of the Shelby family begins long before the smoky streets of Birmingham became their battlefield. Their roots trace back to a mix of Irish traveler and Romani heritage, giving them a culture that values family loyalty, resilience, and cunning. This combination of backgrounds wasn't just a footnote, it shaped their survival instincts and their approach to power. In a world where poverty and violence were part of daily life, the Shelbys learned early that family was everything. Their parents, especially their father, Arthur Shelby Sr., laid the foundations for a family that would rise above ordinary life, while not always present in their day-to-day lives. The lessons from their parents, whether discipline, strategic thinking, or the importance of loyalty, echoed through the siblings' choices as they grew up. The early years were far from easy. Post-World War I Birmingham was a city of hardship. Returning soldiers faced unemployment, while many families struggled to survive. The Shelby siblings were no exception. With a father who was often distant and a mother whose influence was strong yet sporadic, the children relied on one another for guidance, protection, and a sense of belonging. The streets of Birmingham became both playground and battleground, teaching them lessons that would later define the Peaky Blinders gang. Each sibling developed a role, whether it was the protector, the thinker, or the negotiator. These roles weren't assigned, they emerged naturally as the siblings learned to survive and thrive in a harsh world. At the heart of the family was the understanding that blood ties meant more than anything else. Loyalty was absolute, and betrayal was punished harshly. The Shelbys' Romani roots reinforced this code. In their culture, family decisions were often collective, and respect for elders was key. These cultural foundations carried over into their criminal enterprise. It wasn't just about money or power. It was about maintaining the family legacy and ensuring that every sibling had a role in the empire. Even as children, the Shelbys displayed traits that would later define the gang: intelligence, cunning, and a willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect their own. The parents, despite their flaws, also instilled a sense of ambition. Arthur Shelby Sr., though not always present, was a man who understood influence and control. He taught his children that survival wasn't enough. They needed to carve out a position of power, to demand respect, and to ensure their name carried weight. The absence of consistent parental guidance meant that siblings leaned on each other, but it also forced them to think strategically. Decisions were often made with the whole family in mind, not just individual gain. This early education in loyalty, survival, and strategic thinking created the framework for what would become the Peaky Blinders empire. The Shelby family's beginnings were not glamorous. They lived in cramped homes, worked hard, and faced prejudice from those outside their community. But these hardships forged resilience. They learned that control wasn't given, it had to be taken. And while the children were young, they already understood the unspoken rules of power: trust your family above all, and never show weakness. These lessons would follow them through every business deal, every conflict, and every betrayal they encountered as adults. By the time the world would come to know the Peaky Blinders, the foundation had already been laid, rooted in culture, hardship, and an unbreakable family bond. At the center of the Shelby family were the siblings, each with a role that shaped the gang and the dynasty. Thomas Shelby, the mastermind, carried the weight of the family on his shoulders from a young age. War had left scars on him that went beyond the physical, giving him a perspective that others could never understand. He learned early that survival demanded intelligence, calculation, and control. Tommy's vision wasn't just about running a gang, it was about building an empire that would outlast him. Every decision he made, every move he executed, was a step toward securing not only wealth but respect and power for the Shelby name. The cunning he displayed was rooted in childhood lessons, watching his parents and elders navigate a harsh world, and seeing how authority and fear could shape outcomes. Arthur Shelby, the eldest, was the physical backbone of the family. His loyalty was unmatched, but so was his volatility. While Tommy thought through every plan, Arthur acted on instinct, sometimes with devastating consequences. He carried the anger and trauma of his environment openly, making him both terrifying and deeply human. Despite his struggles, Arthur was fiercely protective of his siblings. Without him, many of the early Peaky Blinders confrontations would have ended differently. His presence was a reminder that strength was as much emotional as it was physical, and that family ties could guide a man even when chaos surrounded him. John Shelby, the middle brother, balanced loyalty with a desire for normalcy. While deeply entrenched in the family business, he sought moments of stability through his marriage and children. John's perspective brought a human element to the gang, showing that the Shelbys were not just criminals, they were people shaped by love, loss, and responsibility. He often served as the bridge between Tommy's ambition and Arthur's impulsiveness, smoothing tensions and helping the siblings act as a unit. His death, one of the most tragic events in the series, highlighted the fragility of the family despite their power and reminded everyone that even the strongest dynasties could suffer irreparable loss. Ada Shelby, the only sister, represented independence and vision outside the violent world her brothers inhabited. Initially distant from the gang's operations, she grew into her role, showing intelligence, resilience, and a determination to shape her own destiny. Ada's perspective was critical in family decisions, offering insight that only someone on the edge of the criminal enterprise could see. Her relationships, particularly her involvement with politically active figures, expanded the influence of the Shelbys beyond Birmingham. She reminded the family that survival was not just about violence, but also strategy, negotiation, and alliances. Each sibling carried distinct strengths and flaws, but together, they formed the nucleus of the Shelby family. Their personalities complemented one another. Tommy's strategy, Arthur's force, John's balance, and Ada's vision created a dynamic that allowed the Shelbys to dominate their world. Childhood hardships, cultural roots, and shared trauma cemented bonds that were impossible to break, even in the face of betrayal or tragedy. Decisions were rarely individual. They reflected the collective will of the family, showing the power of unity in a world that sought to exploit weakness. The interplay between the siblings also created tension that shaped the narrative of the Peaky Blinders. Rivalries, disagreements, and clashes of personality often led to conflict, but they also forged resilience. Each sibling learned not only to survive the outside world, but also to navigate the intricate dynamics within the family. Their bond was not always perfect, but it was unwavering when tested. This delicate balance of loyalty, ambition, and personal struggle became the defining trait of the Shelby family, and it set the stage for future generations. Understanding the siblings is key to understanding the Shelby legacy. They were not simply individuals. They were an interconnected force that carried the family's values, ambitions, and wounds. Their strengths and weaknesses shaped the Peaky Blinders' rise, dictated the gang's survival, and influenced how the next generation would inherit both power and responsibility. Each sibling's choices left marks that would echo throughout the family tree, proving that the Shelby dynasty was more than a criminal enterprise. It was a story of family loyalty and the unyielding drive to rise above circumstances. The Shelby family story doesn't end with Tommy, Arthur, John, or Ada. The legacy they built carried forward through their children, each of whom inherited pieces of the family's ambition, cunning, and resilience. Tommy Shelby's own children became central to the continuation of the dynasty, representing both hope and the weight of the family name. Charlie Shelby, Tommy's son with grace, is perhaps the clearest symbol of this inheritance. From a young age, Charlie is surrounded by the echoes of his father's empire. Though innocent in the early years, He carries the expectations of a family that has always demanded excellence and loyalty. Every move the Shelbys make, every plan they execute, is done with one eye on ensuring that the next generation is prepared to carry the torch. Charlie's upbringing is steeped in both privilege and danger, shaping him into someone who may one day take up the mantle of the Peaky Blinders. Ruby Shelby, the daughter of Tommy and Lizzie, represents another side of the family's future. She embodies emotional intelligence and sensitivity, qualities that were often rare in the men of the Shelby family. Ruby's presence brings balance to a family dominated by ambition and ruthlessness. She becomes a reminder of the softer side of the dynasty, the part of the family that is nurtured, protected, and guided through love rather than fear. As she grows, Ruby carries with her the emotional legacy of the